Who needs a beach day? If you can't get to the beach, bring the beach to you and paint with me. In today's tutorial, we will be practicing mixing 3 colors to create this lovely and loose beach scene. Let's get started. Materials are M-gram paints in nickel azo yellow, quinacridone rose, and phthalocyanine blue, a plate to mix them on, and I used these brushes: silver black velvet number 10, silver white 4, 2, and 0, and I used 2 scrubber brushes, Rosemary & Co. small and a Dick Blick Wonder White size 2. I painted this painting on a 5x7 piece of Arches cold press paper. Here we go. I'm going to wet the sky. I'm going to go kind of around the birds. We're going to keep this pretty loose and quick and fun and playful. Get some blue. I like to let the brush skip across the texture of the paper. And some more water. And then let it be lighter as it heads down towards the shore. I'm going to let that be soft. I have been working on defining edges one time, and now I can't get it out of my mind. So when I get to an edge, if I'm not ready to define it, I make it soft. I may as well just go over the chairs except for the fabric part. That. And because these birds are white, I'm going to make sure the blue goes right up next to the pencil line. I don't want the blue to go onto the ocean permanently yet, because to get the sparklies, I am going to put some salt on it. Surprise, surprise. Jennifer's going to use salt. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and come down here and do the foreground. And for that, I'm going to mix. I'm going to make an orange. A little more red. Add some blue. Got a nice little purple there. I want it to be fairly dark. So there's a lot of blue. More red. That made a really good purple. Get all that pigment off the brush. And add some yellow a little bit at a time. That's too much yellow. There we go. Now I got a really nice gray, so I'm going to go ahead and do a little more red and then a little more yellow. And sometimes you just have to keep trying. Now this is a pretty good warm color. I'm going to go ahead and get a little more blue this time. And now I've got a green, and the opposite of green on the color wheel is red. And now we're kind of getting somewhere. That's pretty good. And now this is dried a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and put a bunch of brown on here. Again, letting it skip over the texture of the paper. I'm going to splatter. And add a little blue. Add a little red. Seems weird, but it'll come out okay, I promise. Now the front has, not the front, the foreground has some lighter, warmer color, adding a little more yellow there. I'm going to add some more red. I don't want green in the foreground, more red. And right now it looks like rainbow. I'm going to get a little more of the brown mix, tone all this down, and I'm going to throw a bunch of salt on this. And I'm going to try the kosher salt. And in between my fingers, I'm kind of grinding it to make some finer crystals. Going a little more. And I'm going to do a little bit of splatter. I'm going to splatter in some pigment, which isn't really doing anything. And making a little more brown. I'm trying to work kind of quickly so that it doesn't dry too much on me. Okay, I like that burnt sienna kind of look. And I'm going to dab up the splats that got in the sky. I'm going to kind of get some of that water off too. Okay, I will let that dry and come back. Okay, it's been overnight and the salt worked really well. I'm going to work on getting it off. And then I'm going to glaze over this area. So that worked out really well. Here's the reference photo. I used it to trace, so that's why you see red lines. But I think that this suggests that rocky area where the chairs are next to the coast. And I really like how some of the salt left some outline right here. They look like little pebbles. What I am going to get rid of is this really hard line here. It's just a little too hard where the pigment settled when it was drying. I grab a paper towel. So all I do is just sort of take off a little bit of that pigment with a wet paintbrush. Taking off pigment is just as important as applying pigment. And if it's pretty stubborn, I'm going to get out a scrubber. And now when I do the water, let me backtrack. I'm going to finish this before I'm going to glaze it with water. Just above that line, and maybe that pigment will disperse a little better. And I'm going to get out my number 2 Dick Blick Wonder White and just kind of very gently soften this coastline. I'm going to kind of soften the front of the foreground to show a blurredness, sort of a bokeh effect from the camera lens, focusing up higher. Just a little, just to make the eye move that way. Over here in the corner, it's pretty blurred. There's a lot of water on here now. I'm not really dabbing it hard, I'm just getting up some of the extra water. Okay, I'm going to dry that. Actually, I think I'm going to put on a little bit of color. I'm mixing an orange, and I'm adding a little bit of blue, and I'm going to just add some of that brown in little spots. And then when this is dry, later on in the painting, I'm going to splat, but I will cover this part. Let's see how that does. This dried up really nicely. I'm going to now work on the water, and I'm going to use my scrubber again to scrub away these pencil lines. In the photo, the ocean is very blurred. I think these chairs are kind of up on a dune or something and looking down at the ocean. I'm not going to do a lot with paint, but I am going to do, later on, I'm going to use a knife to pick out some of those highlights in the waves. So I wanted to get rid of this pencil line so that this looks more out in the distance. A piece of salt in the sky. Okay, so that looks a little better. And now I'm going to use my number 4 silver white. I'm going to, ooh, that's dirty. Still has some yellow in it, I think. I'm going to wet this by section. I'm going to go under the chair. And I'm only going to add a little bit more blue with a teeny bit of red to make it just a little more, just dull it down a little bit. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then when it's not, it's sort of a disappearing line here, disappearing edge. So now I'll do this part. I'm not worried about the handles on the chairs being covered with blue because we're going to use a darker color on those. So I'm going to add a little bit of that blue here, just so it's a little different color from the sky. Some water. Really, I'm only being careful of the fabric of the chairs. clear water. I'll just finish it off. Now, I know that I said earlier that I was trying to do defining an edge one time, and I kind of failed at that right here. So to make up for that, I'm going to just kind of go over it again with this blue color and pretend that I did it once. Okay, I'll let that dry. I had a little malfunction. I have no idea what button I pushed, but anyway, what I did was I just sort of got rid of some more of the pencil line. This had dried a little bit hard, so I got rid of that. And then I was cleaning up some of this hard-lined blue around the birds. And I was saying that since the birds are going to have hard lines, I don't want the sky to have hard lines around them because it would be very distracting for the viewer. So I'm just kind of softening around the birds. Here needs to be softened. I think I want to get rid of that one. I think this one's okay. Okay, we'll reevaluate when we get to the bird part. So now I'm going to do the chairs. I'm going to get a smaller brush. I'm going to use not a double, maybe a 00. It is hard for me to figure out the difference between my 00 and my 0. If you're buying these, I would skip buying the 00 and just get the 0 and get the 50 instead of this one. But I mean, I use them both. Anyway, let's make a dark brown. I'm going to get a lot of blue, and I'm going to make a dark purple. I'm only using enough water to re-wet the glob of blue. I'm using this little brush too because I find that a lot of times when I mix with a bigger brush, I get too much water in it. So you can see that's a very dark blue, kind of leaning towards purple. I'm going to add a little bit more red. And start adding yellow. That's not nearly enough. It's kind of turning it green, so I will add red. And we're back to purple. Okay, a little more yellow. Still turning a little bit green, but I'll get it greener and then add red. And there we go. That's sort of starting to turn brown. You can see even with this little brush, I'm getting a lot of water in this. Okay, that's turning brown. And there we have a warmish gray, so maybe a little more red, a little more yellow. Okay, that's pretty good. And here's where I'm going to be careful and not going to be very detail oriented. I'm just going to put some stands and some handles. Simple little lines. This came all the way down. This one comes all the way down and then touches that one. And there's a little bit going across. Same here. I forgot to do this one that's going across the bottom. This one has one going across the bottom. This one's a little off kilter. I want to make sure and get some of the feet of the chairs down onto the pebbles because I don't want them to look like they're just propped right on top of this line. So that's something to keep in mind. So this is coming in front of the fabric and continuing down here. And then each chair has a little shadow. I'm getting a lighter version of the brown that I mixed. I added a little water to make a lighter value. And I'm going to put a few little, the sun is on this side, shining in. Shadow down here. They're not really obvious, but they do, make the painting a little more lifelike. And then you would definitely want some shadows where the feet of the chairs are meeting the pebbles. Now for the fabric on the chairs, with the absolute palest blue I can think of. It's mostly water. I'm going to put this on each chair, right over all the stripes. Our mind is telling us that this fabric is white and blue, but if you look at the photo, there's some reflection of blue in the fabric. And when I put on the darker stripes, this blue that we're putting on now will seem faded and act as white. What I did off camera was I wanted to make these dark brown lines a little less stark, so I just sort of softened them and dabbed them. And now they look like they have a little more air between us and them. Then I mixed a turquoise blue right here so that I can paint in the stripes. And I have lines on the chairs, but I'm not going to really pay attention. I'm just going to make some stripes. Don't make yourself crazy staying in the lines. Just put some stripes on the chairs. It doesn't have to be exactly like the photo. And now this chair has kind of the same color as this chair, so I'm going to move to this one and use this same puddle. These two, I think this one actually is the same color. I'm going to add a little bit more blue to it though. A little more green. I think I was running out of that puddle, so. One more over here. Now this has some fabric sort of wrapped around, I think a dowel of some kind. So I'm going to add just a little bit of brown. Just to wipe it on there. There. Same here. And then same here. Just a little bit of brown. Okay, this one's more blue, probably because of its position. They're probably all the same chair. But for variety, we will keep the theme going with the different color. And letting yourself be a little loose and make this painting a little wonky is totally fine. It actually adds to its character and makes it more interesting. I'm going to do the blue thing, blue-brown. There. I'm going to do a little more here. It looks like it leaked out right there. A little bit more. A little more brown. This is coming along quite nicely. I don't know if I'm going to do anything to the water. I like the effect that it has. It looks like it's very far away. So for now, I think I'm done with all of this, and I'm going to work on the birds, which isn't going to take much. I think I'm going to use my number 2. And these birds have on them a little bit of gray and a little bit of dark color on the tips of their wings and for their feet. And you can just barely see a little bit of beak. So I'm going to go ahead and just use this same color. I'm going to use my 0 again. I'm going to wet the bird and get this very light value, and I'm going to just put a little bit on the top of the wings. If the bird was right side up, this would be the top. Same here, wet the wing. Add a little bit of the brown to the tops. Okay, this wing goes like that. It's a little too much water. I just wick some of that off with the damp brush. Add a little bit of the brown. Little brown in the body. And then here, wet the wings. A little bit of gray brown to the top. A little bit right there just to define the body a little bit. And I'm going to add some dark for the feet, just little specks. This one has its belly showing to us, little feet. So does this one. This one has its feet coming down from its bottom. This is the back of the bird, not the underbelly. These three birds are showing their underbelly. I'm going to put a little bit of orange beak with this rust color that I have. Just a tiny little speck. This one I don't like that much, but. And then their wing tips. I think this is dry enough now. It's just enough to show that these are maybe some terns or some gulls. This one doesn't look quite, this doesn't look quite right, so I'm going to add a little bit of sky blue right here and then soften that. That looks a little better. I'm going to do the same thing right here. And soften. And I think just to show you what I meant about using a knife on the ocean, just a little knife. I got this one on Amazon. I think it was $5. I like this one because it retracts and I'm not going to cut myself when I'm digging around for other things in the drawer. So you just sort of lightly scrape off some of the blue paint for some highlights. I'm not going to do a lot because like I said, this is far away and I just want it to show a little bit different texture than the sky. And I think I'm done. If I were going to do this on a larger sheet of paper, I would probably mask the birds and mask the fabric, and I would do a nice smooth wash. And then when it was dry, obviously remove the masking and then do the painting the same way. I really like this and I think that it would go well in someone's house, housewarming present if they live at the beach or near the ocean. Taking the tape off is sometimes the most fun part, isn't it? And we did that with only 3 colors. I hope you enjoyed this video and you give it a try. And if you do, tag me on social media so I can see what you did. Thanks for watching and have a great day.